10 disgusting sexual ways that narcissists get addicted to making love to you. Have you ever found yourself in an intimate relationship where moments of supposed closeness leave you feeling more confused, drained, or even profoundly diminished, rather than truly connected? Perhaps you've tried desperately to put your finger on it, to articulate the source of this pervasive discomfort, but the unsettling feeling lingered, a vague, gnawing sense that the sexual dynamic, in its very essence, wasn't about mutual pleasure, reciprocal care, or genuine intimacy. Instead, it seemed to be serving some other hidden agenda, something you couldn't quite articulate, but that consistently left you feeling profoundly used, utterly unseen, or deeply violated on an emotional level. For those who have, or are currently, entangled with individuals exhibiting pronounced narcissistic traits, the intimate realm, specifically, can prove to be an extraordinarily bewildering and profoundly damaging psychological space. It is precisely within the confines of such close, personal connection that the narcissist's underlying and deeply ingrained core pathology, their insatiable and relentless need for absolute control, their unceasing hunger for external validation, and their pervasive tendency toward the objectification of others, can manifest itself in a myriad of covert and overt ways. These manifestations are not only deeply confusing and disorienting for their partners, who struggle to reconcile the presented persona with the felt reality, but are ultimately, and perhaps inevitably, incredibly painful, leaving emotional scars that linger long after the physical moments have passed. This is because, quite fundamentally, narcissists do not typically crave or seek what most people might traditionally conceptualize as intimacy in its true, vulnerable, and reciprocal sense. Nor do they desire genuine love characterized by unconditional affection and mutual regard. Instead, their deepest, most driving desires within the sphere of personal relationships are almost invariably and fundamentally twisted, distorted by an overriding and pathological need for pervasive power, a continuous influx of narcissistic supply to fuel their fragile ego, and immediate gratification of their self-serving desires. In this insightful and perhaps challenging video, we are going to courageously venture into a particularly sensitive, and more often than not, an entirely unspoken territory of human relationships. Our purpose is to meticulously explore 10 profound psychological cravings that drive a narcissist's sexual behavior. Desires that are fundamentally self-serving and often manifest as what feels like disgusting ways or disturbing deviations from a place of genuine connection. This isn't about casting judgment upon specific consensual sexual preferences or to stigmatize any particular form of intimacy between consenting adults. Instead, our true objective is to foster a deeper understanding of the hidden, often insidious and manipulative, motivations and drivers that lie simmering just beneath the surface when a narcissist chooses to engage in acts of physical or emotional intimacy. By gaining a comprehensive understanding of these complex and often covert patterns from a psychological perspective, grounded in clinical observation and behavioral analysis, you will be far better equipped to recognize the critical red flags as they appear, thereby empowering yourself to actively protect your invaluable emotional well-being and ultimately to begin the essential journey of reclaiming your authentic sense of self within the context of these profoundly challenging and often damaging relationships. This crucial knowledge is far more than merely insightful or interesting. It stands as an absolutely critical tool that is indispensable for your ongoing healing process and a powerful catalyst for your personal empowerment moving forward. For many empathetic individuals caught in the orbit of a narcissist, the idea of intimacy, particularly sexual intimacy, is rooted in connection, vulnerability, and mutual pleasure. However, for a narcissist, the landscape of intimacy is entirely different. Their internal world is devoid of genuine empathy, and their primary drive is to regulate their fragile self-esteem through external validation, control, and the constant acquisition of narcissistic supply. This fundamental difference transforms the intimate space into a transactional one, where your body and emotions become tools to serve their pathological needs. When we talk about disgusting sexual ways that narcissists get addicted to making love to you, we are referring not to specific acts themselves, but to the underlying psychological motivations, and the resulting emotional and psychological toll on the partner. These addictions are to the power, control, and supply they extract, and the ways in which they do this are psychologically abhorrent, leaving the partner feeling used, unseen, and ultimately deeply wounded. It's crucial to understand that these are patterns of behavior and intention, rather than isolated incidents. They are expressions of the narcissist's core pathology manifesting in the most vulnerable of human interaction. Here are 10 psychological addictions that manifest as psychologically disturbing or disgusting sexual dynamics for the partner. From a clinical, psychological perspective, their addiction to objectification and dehumanization. One of the most insidious and frankly psychologically disgusting ways a narcissist engages in intimacy is their addiction to objectifying and dehumanizing you. For them, sexual encounters are often not about connecting with a whole, complex human being, but rather about using a body to fulfill a specific, self-serving need, whether that's purely physical gratification, proving their desirability, or asserting absolute dominance. You become a mere prop, an extension of their own desires, a thing to be used, rather than an equal partner with your own feelings, preferences, and inviolable boundaries. From a psychological standpoint, this relentless objectification is a critical and deeply ingrained defense mechanism for the narcissist. To genuinely connect with another person, to truly see and acknowledge their personhood, would fundamentally require a level of authentic empathy and profound vulnerability, two traits a narcissist profoundly lacks and actively avoids. By pathologically reducing you to a mere object, they bypass the immense discomfort of genuine emotional engagement and can, with chilling efficiency, exploit you without having to confront their own terrifying internal emptiness or the inherent demands of true reciprocity. The disgusting aspect manifests itself excruciatingly for you as feeling utterly unseen, unheard, and profoundly used. You might experience the profound emotional disconnect where your body is present, engaged in the physical act, but your very soul feels absent, disregarded, and utterly irrelevant. Your pleasure, your explicit and implicit consent, your emotional state might become secondary or, more often, entirely irrelevant to their myopic pursuit of their own singular gratification. This leads to a pervasive sense of emptiness, a feeling of being a mere vessel rather than a valued living individual, causing deep and lasting emotional scars that systematically chip away at your inherent self-worth and your fundamental ability to trust in the authenticity of human connection. The act itself becomes a cold, transactional performance for their exclusive benefit, leaving you feeling profoundly hollowed out rather than genuinely connected or fulfilled. 2. Their addiction to power and control over your body and emotions. For a narcissist, intimacy, and particularly the sexual dynamic, is often transformed into a potent arena for relentlessly exercising and asserting absolute power and unyielding control over your body and your emotions. Their deep-seated, pervasive insecurity means they constantly and pathologically need to feel unequivocally superior and completely in charge within any given interaction. In the sexual dynamic, this translates into an overwhelming addictive desire to dictate every term, to override your explicit and implicit preferences, and to ensure without question that their will unequivocally prevails. It is, at its fundamental core, a raw power play, not an act of shared vulnerability or mutual exploration. Psychologically, this insatiable need for control stems directly from their profound internal chaos and their debilitating inability to healthily regulate their own emotions and internal states. By ruthlessly controlling others, they meticulously construct an illusion of external order and undeniable power in their external world, which serves to temporarily, yet fleetingly, soothe their deep-seated internal anxieties and their constant fear of being exposed as the inadequate individuals they truly are. In the most intimate of spaces, this disgusting addiction to control can manifest itself in myriad ways, as subtle, or, more often, overtly forceful coercion, a chilling disregard for your non-verbal cues of discomfort or distress, a relentless pushing of boundaries even after you've expressed them with clarity, or a stubborn insistence on specific acts regardless of your genuine desire, comfort, or enthusiastic consent. You might feel perpetually pressured, overtly coerced, or simply utterly unable to articulate a no without immediately fearing a torrent of negative consequences, such as the punishing silent treatment, explosive rage, or the chilling withdrawal of affection. The excruciating pain for you emanates directly from experiencing an insidious loss of your inherent agency, a profound and pervasive disrespect for your autonomy, and a creeping, terrifying sense of fear that systematically replaces any genuine feeling of safety or trust. Your very body, your most intimate desires, become utterly subjugated to their unpredictable whims, leaving you feeling emotionally constricted, physically violated, and profoundly disrespected even within the sacred confines of intimacy. This dynamic chips away, relentlessly and agonizingly, at your fundamental ability to consent freely, systematically replacing genuine desire with a learned, agonizing compliance. 3. Their addiction to extracting specific forms of supply, adoration, validation, rage. Every single interaction with a narcissist, including and especially sexual ones, is ultimately about the relentless and insatiable acquisition of narcissistic supply. In the intimate realm, their primary and psychologically disgusting addiction is to extract very specific forms of this vital supply from you, your unadulterated validation, your overwhelming admiration for their perceived sexual prowess, or even your raw fear and abject subservience. Sex, for them, becomes a meticulously choreographed performance explicitly designed to elicit these specific ego-feeding reactions from you, never a truly shared experience of profound vulnerability and mutual pleasure. Psychologically, the narcissist pathologically utilizes sexual encounters as a distorted and self-serving mirror, not to reflect genuine connection, but to reflect back to themselves their own inflated and grandiose self-image. They crave to see an unquestioning awe in your eyes, to hear effusive words of praise for their performance, or to witness your complete emotional and physical surrender, all of which serves to immediately and powerfully feed their endlessly hungry, fragile ego. They are not genuinely interested in your pleasure as an end in itself. Rather, their true chilling interest lies solely in your reaction to their meticulously crafted performance. The pain for you lies agonizingly in feeling like a mere audience member, forced into a passive role rather than an active, equally valued and cherished participant. You might experience an immense and soul-crushing pressure to perform, to react in a way that unequivocally fuels their insatiable ego, rather than authentically experiencing or expressing your own genuine desires or emotional states. This can lead to a pervasive feeling of exhaustion, profound inauthenticity, and deeply ingrained resentment, as your most intimate moments are systematically hijacked and perverted to exclusively serve their pathological bottom line. Your emotional energy, your physical responses, become a chilling commodity that they are relentlessly extracting, leaving you feeling utterly depleted, hollow, and profoundly unseen in your authentic self. This continuous parasitic search for supply within intimacy systematically transforms what should be a connecting and life-affirming experience into a draining, emotionally bankrupt, and truly disgusting transaction. 4. Their addiction to the thrill of boundary violation and subtle coercion. A particularly unsettling and disgusting addiction for many narcissists in the sexual sphere is the thrill derived from boundary violation and subtle, or sometimes overt, coercion. For them, the act of pushing limits, of subtly or overtly influencing you to do something you're not entirely comfortable with, or even simply ignoring your subtle cues of hesitation, serves as a powerful confirmation of their power and your submission. Psychologically, this compulsion stems from their profound disregard for others' autonomy and their inherent belief in their own entitlement. Your boundaries are not seen as protective lines, but as challenges to their omnipotence, as obstacles to be overcome. The thrill they get from this isn't about the act itself, but about the breaking of your will, the confirmation that they can exert control over you, even in the most personal spaces. This addiction can manifest as persistent urging despite your discomfort, dismissing your no with charm or anger, or skillfully manipulating you into compliance through guilt or obligation. The pain for you is immense, a gradual erosion of your sense of self-worth, a feeling of being continually disrespected, and the chilling realization that your comfort and consent are secondary to their need for control. This constant pressure to violate your own boundaries leaves you feeling profoundly unsafe and ultimately deeply violated on a psychological level, turning intimacy into a dangerous game of power rather than a shared experience of pleasure. 5. Their addiction to using sex as a tool of punishment and reward. One of the most emotionally abusive, and therefore psychologically disgusting ways a narcissist operates in the intimate sphere is their addiction to using sex as a powerful, unpredictable tool of punishment and reward. They crave the leverage that physical intimacy provides, allowing them to manipulate your behavior through a cruel pattern of intermittent reinforcement, granting or withholding sex to control your emotional state and actions. Psychologically, this creates a profound sense of anxiety, desperation, and powerlessness in the partner. When sex is given as a reward, it's often presented as a grand gesture of their love or approval, making you feel special for a fleeting moment, only to have it cruelly withdrawn later. When it's withheld as punishment, e.g. through the silent treatment or coldness, it creates a profound sense of rejection, longing, and self-doubt. The narcissist becomes addicted to observing your frantic attempts to regain their approval, feeding their ego with your efforts and desperation. The pain for you is akin to being a trained animal, constantly striving for a crumb of affection, experiencing intense sexual anxiety, and feeling that your intimate life is entirely dictated by their unpredictable whims and moods. You learn to walk on eggshells, constantly trying to anticipate their desires and avoid their displeasure, sacrificing your own needs and desires in the process. This dynamic strips intimacy of its spontaneity, joy, and genuine connection, systematically turning it into a transactional mechanism for control and emotional abuse, leaving you feeling manipulated, used, and profoundly drained. 6. Their addiction to devaluation and shame post-intimacy. A particularly brutal and psychologically disgusting pattern in narcissistic relationships is the addiction to the devaluation cycle, where intense idealization is inevitably followed by harsh criticism, contempt, and shaming, often immediately following moments of physical intimacy. The chilling post-sex discard, the critical comment about your performance or body, the sudden emotional withdrawal. These are hallmarks of this particularly cruel form of manipulation. Psychologically, this behavior serves multiple, deeply pathological purposes for the narcissist. Once they have received the desired supply, physical gratification, validation, you lose your immediate utility or become a reminder of their own unacknowledged vulnerability or shame, their own profound self-loathing and shame, which they are desperate to avoid, are projected onto you in these moments. By devaluing or shaming you immediately after intimacy, they reassert their perceived superiority, distance themselves from any fleeting sense of weakness that might accompany desire, and transfer their own feelings of inadequacy onto you. The pain for you is immense and deeply confusing. You are left with emotional whiplash, reeling from the sudden shift from intimacy to contempt. The closeness is instantly replaced by a feeling of worthlessness, humiliation, and profound emotional abandonment. This cycle teaches you that intimacy is unsafe, that it will inevitably be followed by pain and punishment, systematically eroding your self-esteem and making you question your own desirability and sanity. It's a calculated psychological tactic to keep you insecure, off balance, and perpetually dependent, constantly striving for a return to the fleeting idealization phase, which they control. 7. Their addiction to mirroring and mimicry without authenticity. Narcissists are masters of mimicry. In intimate relationships, a deeply disgusting aspect of their sexual behavior is their addiction to mirroring your desires and performing what they believe you want, all without a shred of genuine feeling or authentic desire themselves. They become skilled chameleons, reflecting your preferences back to you to create an illusion of profound connection. Psychologically, this mirroring is a powerful manipulative tactic used during the idealization phase to hook you and secure supply. They study your needs, your fantasies, your vulnerabilities, and then project an image that perfectly aligns with what you crave in a partner. This addiction to mirroring is born from their profound lack of a stable, authentic self. They don't know who they are, so they become what they perceive you want them to be. The disgusting nature of this behavior lies in its profound inauthenticity and deceptive quality. You believe you're connecting with someone deeply aligned with your desires, only to later discover it was all a performance. The pain for you comes from the realization that the intimacy you shared was a mirage, based on a deceptive imitation rather than genuine connection. It leaves you questioning your judgment, feeling profoundly betrayed by the illusion, and struggling to trust authentic intimacy in the future. 8. Their addiction to the creation of jealousy and triangulation through sex. Narcissists thrive on chaos, drama, and external validation, often achieved through triangulation, where they involve a third party in their relationships. A particularly disgusting and manipulative addiction for them is to use sexual moments with you to create jealousy in others, or leverage triangulation dynamics with external individuals. Psychologically, this behavior stems from their insatiable need for constant attention and their pathological inability to feel secure in a one-on-one dynamic. By making you feel insecure about their fidelity or desirability, or by subtly implying their sexual prowess to others, they ensure they remain the center of attention and control multiple individuals. This addiction can be expressed by making thinly veiled comments about past sexual partners, subtly hinting at other interested parties, or deliberately being vague about their activities, all designed to make you feel competitive or inadequate. The pain for you is immense. It leads to profound insecurity, constant self-doubt about your worth as a sexual partner, and the agonizing feeling of being used as a pawn in their manipulative games. You become entangled in a chilling web of emotional betrayal and comparison, constantly questioning the authenticity of their affection and the security of your bond. This dynamic erodes trust at its very foundation, turning intimate moments into a battlefield of comparison and suspicion, leaving you feeling perpetually anxious, devalued, and like a mere tool in their wider scheme of manipulation. 9. Their addiction to gaslighting your sexual reality and experiences. Perhaps one of the most psychologically damaging and truly disgusting addictions a narcissist harbors in the intimate realm is to gaslight your sexual reality and desires. This is about systematically undermining your perceptions, denying your experiences, and twisting your genuine preferences, comfort or discomfort to suit their own distorted narrative and maintain their absolute control over your mind. They crave the power to make you doubt your own feelings and memories regarding your intimate life. Psychologically, this gaslighting serves to isolate you, control your thoughts, and prevent you from recognizing their manipulative patterns. If they can make you doubt your own experiences, your own sanity, they can continue to exploit you without resistance or question. This addiction can manifest in deeply insidious ways, denying that an uncomfortable sexual encounter happened, dismissing your expressed preferences or discomfort as silly, too sensitive, or unreasonable, blaming you for their own lack of consideration, or even convincing you that your genuine desires are somehow wrong, deviant, or undesirable. The pain for you is profound and profoundly disorienting. You begin to self-doubt your own perceptions, question your sanity, and progressively lose touch with your authentic sexual desires, boundaries, and sense of self. You might internalize their twisted reality, leading to a deep sense of confusion, guilt, and pervasive shame. This insidious erosion of your sexual agency and self-trust is a devastating long-term consequence, as you lose the fundamental ability to trust your own body's signals and your mind's interpretation of events. This hidden addiction to control your inner world, particularly regarding something as personal as intimacy, leaves you profoundly unseen, silenced, and psychologically violated. 10. Their addiction to the cycle of sexual hoovering and discard. Finally, a profoundly disgusting and deeply damaging addiction for narcissists in the sexual sphere is their addiction to the entire cycle of intermittent reinforcement, the love bombing that often involves intense sexual idealization, followed by discard and then the subsequent sexual hoovering, only to repeat the discard. They are addicted to the power of drawing you back into their orbit through the promise of intimacy, extracting temporary supply, and then casting you aside once more. Psychologically, this pattern feeds their core pathology by allowing them to exert absolute control over your emotional state. The periods of intense sexual connection during love bombing and hoovering provide them with immense supply. Your adoration, your longing, your desperate desire for their return. They are addicted to this rush of power and validation. However, because they are incapable of genuine sustained intimacy, and because boredom inevitably sets in once supply is secured, they quickly move to devalue and discard, only to repeat the cycle later when their supply runs low or they need to reassert control. The disgusting nature of this addiction lies in the cruel, cyclical exploitation of your deepest vulnerabilities and desires. The pain for you is immense, a constant cycle of hope and crushing disappointment, profound emotional whiplash, and the systematic erosion of your trust in intimacy itself. You are left feeling like a toy they pick up and put down at will, never truly valued, only used for their temporary gratification and power play. This addiction to the destructive cycle itself leaves you repeatedly traumatized and struggling to break free from its addictive grip. The intimate realm, which should be a sanctuary of connection and vulnerability, often becomes another battlefield for those entangled with a narcissist. The disgusting sexual ways we've discussed today are not merely physical acts. They are the insidious manifestations of deep-seated psychological pathologies. The narcissist's relentless addiction to objectifying, controlling, extracting supply, violating boundaries, using sex as a weapon, devaluing, mirroring without authenticity, triangulating, gaslighting, and perpetuating a cruel cycle of hoovering and discard. Understanding these psychologically abhorrent addictions is crucial for your healing and liberation. It allows you to see that the pain you experienced was not a reflection of your worth, but a direct consequence of their disordered inner world and their desperate pathological need for power and control. It clarifies that their wants in intimacy are fundamentally self-serving and devoid of genuine care or reciprocity. This knowledge empowers you to recognize that your experiences were valid, that your feelings of being used or unseen were not imagined, and that you are not alone in having navigated these complex and often traumatizing dynamics. Your journey towards healing involves reclaiming your sense of self, rebuilding trust in your own perceptions, and understanding that true intimacy can only flourish in a space of mutual respect, genuine empathy, and unwavering consent. By recognizing these disturbing patterns, you empower yourself to break free from the cycle, protect your emotional well-being, and cultivate relationships built on authenticity, peace, and genuine connection, far removed from the psychologically disgusting addictions of a narcissist. Your courage in facing these truths is a testament to your incredible strength. Thank you for joining us on this vital journey of insight and empowerment. If this video has resonated with you, or if you believe it could bring crucial understanding and a path forward to someone you know, please share it widely. Let's continue to illuminate the path toward healing and authentic connection for everyone. See you in the next video.